Alright, so after sleeping on the fact that the front end, the far end forearm mounting holes didn't come out in the middle of the resin fill, and that was going to provide a challenge. Well, woke up in the middle of the night and realized, duh, I didn't need to move the holes to the outer edge of the space. I needed to relieve the inletting and change how the action sat in the wood. I mean, we're looking for a very small angular difference in order to get these holes to line up in the middle. So here we do it again. So I used this carbide burr and a variable speed hand drill to relieve the inletting and the front end of the forearm, and also back here in the middle. The angle is so small difference, I don't think it's going to impact this very short radius length of fill all the way at the back. I mean, if I'm wrong, we'll touch it up, but right now bolting it together, it looks like this gives me the little bit of movement we need. And so now I'm going to move these holes that came out too high. I'm going to move them down, and I'm going to use the small carbide burr here, you can see that, and a Dremel to I'm going to open up the holes, hog them out down into this new direction. I'm going to bed them to a more centered position, and then by this afternoon we'll be back to where we were last night, so, or 2 nights ago, whenever it was when I first did this. I had to think about it for a little bit, but yep, this is a better solution than making some kind of giant holes to accommodate the off-center bolt location. So I'm going to do a little more hogging, more gluing, and I'll check back with you after this glue is kicked. Well, more than kicked. We'll wait till it cures, but it's going to be warm. It is already warm today, so should be my mid-afternoon. We ought to be able to take it apart, and I'll check back in with you. Okay, well, here I am glued up again. Can't really tell if I've got the bolts in the middle of the holes or not, because by the time it's packed with splue, which is thickened epoxy, I can't tell where the hole is. So these holes lined up perfect, and the trigger guard, the main screw, fits perfect. My dry tests, things seem to line up so that if I didn't put any force on anything, just put it together, the holes were in the middle. But like I said, once I get this all gooped up, I can't tell what's going on, so cross our fingers that it's better than the first time. While I was at it, I rebedded the whole front of the action, and around this part here I had to do a little relieving on this. And I may, before I'm done, bed along the back of the action, because I notice on this side, must have been from the first time we did this job, you know, when I carved the stock, that it left a little bit of a gap. So I might choose to fill that. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know why that ended up with like a little bit of a gap. This was a very difficult stock to carve though, so I'm not surprised if there's some little inconsistencies in the inletting. And you know, when first time I carved it, it was so scary to put the action down in the stock, because in order to do it you have to spread the forearms apart in order to get this fat part of the action down in there. Yeah, boy, every time I did that I was afraid it was going to crack back here where the stock ended up breaking. But now that we got steel pins in there, I'm really not worried at all about putting the action in the stock. I spread them apart and feel like there's no way it can break now. I mean, although I suppose there is a stress riser at the end of the pins, you know, somewhere in here, as deep as I was able to go. So anyway, we're going to let this cure for a few hours, probably 4 or 5, and probably by this evening be able to take it apart and see how it looks on the second try. Alright, just logging in real quick to show you why I can't tell how good a job this is. The inletting looks beautiful. It totally matched up with the tube very nicely. It looks better than it did before. But you can see why I can't tell how close I am to the center of the hole, because all that splew all over the place. So I have to sand that down, and then we'll know how we did. I think I'm going to be happy. Everything else looks so good. Okay, so I'll be back here in a little bit. Okay, so now I sanded it down and exposed the resin-filled hole and how our new hole did. It is forward a little bit. I guess they all were a little bit, but it is much more centered up and down. And then the other side is also forward, but centered up and down. And so the next test is to lay a circle template. Well, let me zoom out. Whoops. Next test is to lay a circle template over it, and we're going to be cutting a 7/16 inch hole. And so just eyeballing it, the entire fill area is enclosed within that. And I'm using 13/32 because this is a drawing template. 13/32 actually fits the Forstner. So the drawing template leaves room for the pencil, I guess. Not I guess, it does. And that one is a no-brainer. And this one is the other problem child. And it looks good. It might leave a thin sliver of fill on the aft side of the hole. From what I'm seeing, it might. This was the problem hole, and we improved it a whole lot from what it would have been by doing the redo. So that one is going to be no problem. That one is going to be no problem. We've had really good success here. So next I'm going to put it in the milling machine and indicate the center of the holes, use the Forstner bit to cut the pockets, and I will do that in a little bit, but I also have to write a paper. So that's going to occupy my next few hours, but this evening I'll get out and punch these two holes, and then that's the last step of anything dangerous. And it's just going to be about sanding. Put a lot of 80 grit scratches in this, so I have to sand it down and re-oil it back up again. And it shouldn't take too long to re-oil it up because it's already fully saturated. It's just these areas on the forearm that I had to really significantly sand that might take a little more than minimal. But the rest of it, I just cleaned up the dents from its fall, and along the way took care of a few other little issues that were probably from the last finishing. That's why I always recommend people, use your nicely finished gun stocks. Take them out in the field, take them to the range, let them get banged around, and every few years, even every half a dozen years, sand it down, steam out the dents, not in that order, steam out the dents, then sand it down, and put some fresh coats of oil on it. It'll be back like it was brand new. It's the beauty of a hand rubbed oil finish on walnut. Okay, I will check in with you all this evening.